Hello and welcome to episode 284 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 5th of June, 2019. That's a Wednesday. And tomorrow, the pre-E3 whatever's going on news cavalcade begins in earnest. So by the time this podcast comes out, it once again will have been recorded on Wednesday. So for the second week in a row, just feel the need to preemptively apologise for that.
Should we preemptively talk, we haven't got anything to revise about, Modern Warfare 1?
No, I don't think so. We could do the opening of the last podcast again, but I should say what I forgot to say, which is that my name is Chris Thurston and joining me is you, Alex.
Yes, me.
And also Tom.
So it's the same, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the same again, basically. So if you enjoyed last week's episode, you can just listen to that again. But to clarify, that was recorded now 2 Wednesdays ago. So you're getting a kind of updated Wednesday to Wednesday kind of, you could plot something here, probably. The point is that we're in news season, presumably, perhaps, which means that, well, things leak on purpose on Wednesday. Then they get formally announced on Thursday. And then, it's all, plain sailing from there. So to start off with, one of two, pre-E3 things that has actually happened seems to be a little bit of rumblings about the Stadia stuff that will be being presented by Google tomorrow, Thursday, yesterday, if it's Friday, or just at some point in the past. And then the detail there, which I thought was interesting, is Destiny 2 being on Stadia, but also getting cross-save functionality, which means that you can use your save from other platforms, regardless of the platform that you're using it on. And the blank stare I'm receiving from Alex communicates almost no enthusiasm for this idea whatsoever.
No, it would have made a lot of sense to me when it first came out on PC, because I desperately wanted to play it on PC, but I had 100 hours or something on PS4, and I didn't want to have to do it all again.
Mm-hmm. So presumably this is like cross saves with PS4 and with PC?
And Xbox.
And so does that mean there's also cross saves between Xbox and PlayStation now?
Well,
can you use it as a bridge?
I don't know, because this is the thing. So one of the reasons they gave previously for not doing this is the game has always had quite a lot of PlayStation exclusive content, because there was always a relationship between Bungie and Sony. So there were PlayStation exclusive multiplayer maps and things like that, and the cosmetics and things. So there was always a reason why you couldn't do it, because those assets couldn't then show up on PC. But maybe that not matter with Google money?
Google money say...
That is very much a problem where, if you just work on it a bit, now you fix that problem.
Yeah.
Let's just not have the exclusive stuff show up on the platforms that it's not on.
Yeah, right.
It feels like it's solving a problem that Google has, which is if it wants a pretty successful live game on its service, it doesn't want people to have to start from scratch.
Right, yeah.
Which is the key, which is why the PC version coming out so late was a bit of a failure, really. I mean, I'm sure it's worked out fine, but, it felt pretty odd that it was, I don't know how, it was 6 months, was it as much as a year or something after it came out on console?
Destiny 2?
Yeah, but it came out on PC. It wasn't soon.
Are you sure?
I'm it was not
sure.
Day and date.
Yeah, I feel like it was quite a while.
I can't remember at all. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, look it up. But it's, Google has this problem of the fact that it's a new platform, despite it actually just being the PC version, because people have played a lot of the stuff that it can trumpet, unless it's new games.
I am surprised, actually, that this isn't more of a priority, because although it might only affect... all the people who care about this are people who bought your game twice. That's a great group of people. You really want to help those people and make it good to be a person who bought your game twice.
It came out 6 weeks later on PC.
6 weeks?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
It was September and October 2017.
I think I must have played it quite a lot in between.
You played it for 18 man years in that 6 week period.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it's, I think one of the things that was being argued at the time, I think, about the fact that it didn't have cross-save was that, I don't know whether it was an official thing, but one of the issues that I certainly thought seemed fairly legitimate is that the PC version has mouse aim. So actually there is a functional difference between the two versions.
Your rank could be sort of misleading.
Yeah, like the weapons genuinely handle differently between the two versions, because like Destiny is famously incredibly calibrated for a controller.
Yeah, I kind of get that as a sort of reason, but I think had Destiny been Destiny 2 been a complete smash hit on every platform it launched on and suffered no retention issues whatsoever, then you can make a case that mattered at all. Like, obviously I think it doesn't make sense to put players against one another when some players are on pads and some players are on keyboard, but in terms of their overall progress, which only affects them, I'm not sure why it matters.
Yeah.
You know, like ultimately it's just whether or not players feel like they've earned the things they've got, and you kind of want them to be happy that they're earning things at the pace they enjoy. So I don't know why you would lock that sort of ability to access that pool of progression. Because that's the thing. Like, that's what I never play Destiny on PC simply because why would I reset the big bucket of points that I've been
Do we know a date for Stadia yet? Because I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
Because the third season of Destiny 2 is about to start, or it's starting at it
just started.
It's incredibly imminent, isn't it? Makes me wonder whether they're gonna sort of launch it day and date.
There's a data mined Destiny expansion as well, so it might be that.
Really?
Which is, I think, what comes after this next season.
Right.
So, back to the moon.
But it's interesting they're choosing Bungie, and I wonder whether it's because Google's done something with Bungie for whatever comes next, which is presumably now that Bungie is independent again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think, Google have the resources to offer a
£14, 50, 18,
almost maybe even 19 quid, to help support the game as it goes forwards. So which is not to say that money's necessarily change hands on that scale, but there's certainly a very good possibility that it's in Google's interests to snaffle up games. And you'd assume that post Activision, Bungie would be in a perfect position to take something in return for, developing the game for that platform.
I was
want it
at GDC when Stadia was announced, which means I have no idea what it is. I mean, I know it's a streaming thing from Google. Is it a subscription service?
Nobody knows.
It's fucking streaming games. It's just that. And it'll probably be as good as you can get. That'll be it, because from here on in, we're kind of, the speed of light is probably the big, barrier for it, and
I saw a headline on PC Gamer I played Stadia and got killed because of lag or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I don't know. We talked about it at the time when it was first announced during GDC.
We're all really sad.
And I'm still really, I'm still really annoyed that the tenor of the reveal for Stadia was, "This is new." And I remember on live very well.
Yeah, that was not that long ago. I was born not that long ago and died around the same time.
Yeah. And I just, there are such fundamental problems. So many other aspects of gaming technology. We haven't reached a limit yet. Haven't reached a physical limit yet. Graphics cards are going to get faster and stuff. But it's still going to take a certain amount of time for your game control to go off to a server and for you to get an image back. And you can only kind of scrape. You can only get that little bit better through clever shit.
Yeah, right. Would you have respected them more if they'd come out and said,
"This is old"?
Yeah,
sorry, everyone.
If they'd come out and said, cloud-based game streaming. You've all seen it. We've all seen it. But from Google, we're bringing something new. Shitting fuckloads of money.
Just going to keep throwing money at it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the money is just so a lot of that money will be spent on the exclusives. So that means that, you're always going to get this slightly shitty, muddy way of playing these games.
That's basically what Epic Store has been like. That's why it's a big event is not that, a major player in the field launched a store, because that happens every year and they all fail. But it was like someone with money has decided to just spend that money on this and really make a go of it.
I wonder how much the Epic Store, behind closed doors, whether the Epic Store reaction has affected Google's the way
to
that,
exclusives.
Yeah, obviously this is total conjecture because we have no data, like we have no information whatsoever. But I wonder whether that's rippled through, the way that one sets up a new store.
With a Stadia exclusive, I bet you could claim that. I suppose it's like if something's already announced for PC and then it becomes a Stadia exclusive, then everyone's going to call bullshit. But if it was a totally new thing, you could just claim this is only possible through our cloud technology. You couldn't possibly run on your PC in that voice.
Yeah, I would hope it is genuinely that voice. Yeah,
I think the huge question is simply how people are going to pay for access to those games and services, right? Like and how therefore Google and game developers make money from it.
Yeah.
Like, I think we said this at the time that those were the two answers, missing from the announcement, which will hopefully be answered by the time this podcast goes out. But nonetheless, it's like, whether or not the technology works acceptably is problem one, and how people actually get access to stuff is problem two. Like, there's rumors that Ubisoft are going to launch some sort of, subscription service, sort of EA, is it EA Play? Or Origin Plus or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, like, those, like, or Xbox Live, the various, just pay money and you can get access to most of the games that come out kind of services.
They're all the same phrase, but that means I can't remember any of them.
Yeah, it's premium plus something. There's a rumor that Ubisoft are going to do that because it makes sense for them to do that, or at least it follows that they would. Does that mean you get access to those games on Stadia? They were one of the sort of launch partners for the announcement, at least, and it was all demoed on Assassin's Creed. Or is that an extra fee, or is that a fee that you pay to Google, or is that, you know what I mean? Like, that's the huge kind of query for me. Because if there was some medium by which, if you consider the methodology of building a monopoly at the moment, which is basically use your resources to vastly undercut other operators until they cannot participate. It's how Amazon functions as a retailer. It's, it is pretty much the rule of how companies gain kind of their premiership over a particular part of commerce, whatever it is. And so that would presumably, I would guess, need to be the goal with something like Stadia. Like that would, this is a guess, this is conjecture, but it would be to make things as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
And if there is some mechanism by which Google either makes them free or makes access to them on Stadia free or makes, them part of some other, like, you buy the game anywhere else, you've also got access on Stadia somehow, so you're always plugging into that
like
platform.
the sort of Prime thing where you get that and a shitload of other stuff.
Yeah, right. Like, that's kind of wouldn't surprise me. Like, I kind of would be surprised if someone came out and it's Google Stadia, £15 a month for all the games, which is kind of the model everyone else has done. That would be the place where I'd be really surprised to see it kind of completely just follow the past. Because I'm not sure what Google would do with £15 a month. Yeah, like whether or not its real value is in the sheer amount of data you can harvest all at once, or the ways you can serve ads, or, and so on, and so on, and so on.
It's like that Kindle thing where you can have a slightly cheaper Kindle if you don't mind adverts.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. Speaking of Ubisoft though, the only other kind of E3-ish sort of thing that's on the horizon is, Watch Dogs 3, leaked, big air quotes here because, Ubisoft's big open world game of the year always leaks about a week before E3. It just always does.
Amazon UK seemed to leak it this time, right?
It's always a retailer. It's always a retailer's thing.
A store description that the tone of it is very strange. It does not sound like official blurb from Ubisoft. It sounds like somebody saying, like, and this feature is perfect for Watch Dogs for this reason. Like, it sounds like a sort of pundit, like, opining on it, which is weird.
Oh, God.
But it's, is it called Watch Dogs Legion?
Yeah.
And it's set in London, in a post-Brexit London, apparently.
Oh.
And
it's okay. It won't be political because, Ubisoft isn't.
That debate is definitely something we can look forward to in the near future.
Yep.
No matter what they say, whether good or bad, it's going to be another fucking conversation about that. And the mechanic they mention is that you can be any NPC. At which point I think we have to stop calling them NPCs. Like, that literally stands for non-player character. If you can play as them, they're just a character.
Does that mean you're hacking into them?
I want, like, the title seems to suggest, like, I bet
everyone's
some
being
anonymous
compromised.
collective and, like, No, I'm assuming like when you control someone this is like a GTA-like game, you're running around as them. Like there's no possible explanation that the technology could be doing this to them, I don't think, unless they want to go really sci-fi. So I think it's just like they're all part of your community, you know, it's the people rising up and everyone.
Yeah, that's my guess, yeah. I mean, essentially, if they end up, what they've ended up with, presumably, is a dystopian kind of, Brexit scenario where any random person can put their hands up and suddenly declare that no, they are the main character, which is functionally the Tory leadership contest. A little bit of topical humour for you there.
That's good. Unfortunately, though, you have to play, ultimately, the one that takes you through the storyline is Boris Johnson.
Oh, God.
So, and it's inevitable, and there's nothing
no matter
you can do
what,
about it.
whoever you pick, like there's circumstances can strive to just make it always end up being Boris.
It's like Agent Smith in The Matrix. Like, whoever you pick, it's like, whoa.
Oh, his hair comes sprouting out.
Oh, God. That's...
Belly bursts forth.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, that's the worst. I think I'll just visualize the worst game.
Sorry, Ubisoft.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, that's all that's known about that. I haven't really. Tom, did you play the Watch Dogs?
Yeah, Watch Dogs 2 is really good.
Yeah.
Sort of quietly. It has one super annoying character, who is shown a lot in the promo material. But it does a really good line in like, there are high security areas, both in the missions and also just out in the open world, where I would just sit outside and sort of fly a drone over, have that drone drive a car into somebody, and then jump into a camera to start like opening a gate to cause someone else to do this, and just take out the entire thing without ever walking into it, just through manipulating everything. And it gave you so many different ways. Like if you hack into a car, you don't remote steer it the way you steer a car that you're driving. You just can kind of say, go forwards and left, go forwards and right, or reverse or whatever. And trying to combine those to get it to run over all of the security guards one after the other is kind of amazing. And yeah, like, you know, remote running a forklift truck and actually like operating its forks to kind of lift things out of the way and drop things on people and stuff like that was really good.
So the first one was Chicago, wasn't it? And that was, the second one was San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
If only there was some precedent for Ubisoft to do a open world series about the people rising up, which hop city every iteration. There's actually rumoured that Splinter Cell's coming back. That's been rumoured for ages, but
yeah,
there's been rumblings about that for E3.
Sort of feels inevitable, doesn't it?
It does. It sort of feels like it's been off the boil for long enough. And didn't Sam Fisher show up in Ghost Recon Wild Lads?
It'll just be called Splinter Cell, won't it?
Yeah.
Oh God, it will.
Yeah, definitely.
Splinter.
And also, like Dark Stage, and then screen three lights.
Yeah.
Like you can just, it's all just writing itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the boing.
No, it's going to be lights up to reveal an actor playing Sam Fisher doing the splits above Yves Guillemot's head.
Yes, I'm signed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, you're absolutely right, Alex. That's exactly what's going to happen. Do you reckon the darkness and then the three green lights coming on will be the start of the reveal or the end of the reveal?
Oh, start.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It'll be fucking open world, won't it?
Yeah.
Everything has to go that direction eventually.
Yeah. You'll just be able to do the split.
And it's going to say,
two objects.
it'll, like, trust no one, trust no one. It'll be Sam Fisher saying it, trust no one.
Yeah, and it'll be Michael Ironside's back.
Yeah.
By popular demand.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing they can do with it without people sort of, I mean, without it being pointless, because it may as well be Ghost Recon, you know?
But what do they get? Well, so what's the theme? Because they need to, it has to be fresh in some way, right? They have to do, Modern Warfare is like, it's like Modern Warfare, except we're going like grittier and more realistic and less kind of, indulgent, trashy, pulpy novel type thing, but this is what the horrors of war, and we're going to really confront it.
Oh no!
Is Splinter Cell going to do that?
Why can't they just have a nice dirty
they've
bomb?
kind of already
Russian dirty bomb,
Big EMP,
insurrectionist EMP.
Oh, you mean like Splinter Cells 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
There's a boat. Some point there's a boat. Perfect. Who needs any more? This is what the whole point. If you're going to call your name just the original name, you don't have to do Grimness of War. You can just go right. I'm going to uncomplicatedly have an MEMP and go on a boat.
Like that Modern Warfare thing where they said, like, oh, Modern Warfare has changed so much since 10 years ago. These days it's not black and white, and both sides don't wear uniforms. Splinter Cell will be like, no, this is back when it was black and white. You remember 10 years ago and war was completely straightforward. And bad guys. That's where our game is set.
Yeah, what else can they go for it? Because they've done various different, Clancy sort of paranoid targets have got an EMP or a dirty bomb. They've done the government is bad now. And
Sam is bad now.
And they've done Sam is bad
twice.
Now, and they've done Sam is bad now twice. And those are the only 3 Clancy plots that there are. Like.
Sam is bad now. Or is he?
Like, the only remaining one is submarines. Like, question mark. Which is,
yeah.
I could do a submarine.
Yep. I'd infiltrate a submarine.
Yeah.
Came to it.
Yeah, no, what else? I mean, what they could possibly do? Like, if they were to update it, it would just be like, a really thin, metaphor for like Cambridge Analytica is,
raiding a sort of technology company.
Yeah, exactly. Because they've got the bad algorithm, and their like crude metaphor for like fake news on Facebook or something would be like a video that makes people's eyes bleed, and then they attack other people, and that'd be an excuse to do something.
Metal Gear Solid 2 done that, all this.
Yeah, I know.
And it had like a whole sort of robot that was
the new
bad
Ghost Recon
internet.
is already taking on like tech billionaires and their armies of drones that they apparently have.
Yeah, right.
What if tech is bad, actually?
Which is also the plot of Watch Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Assassin's Creed, because, yeah.
But fundamentally, there is a general wish for let's go back to when things were simple and there wasn't the sort of layers of inherited politics to games. And you kind of, if games are meant to be escapism, there is an argument that I don't want to play a watchdog, which is about Boris Johnson, so I do want him to do splits on a boat with an EMP.
I think maybe that's the thing people have been misunderstanding about those statements that Ubisoft have made about games like The Division. It's not, when they say this game isn't political, what they mean isn't this game isn't political. What they mean is, don't we all miss a time when you could say this game wasn't political, even though it was about a massive American man finding a nuclear bomb in a bin or whatever, and garroting a lot of people along the way. And people just sort of accepted that because it was just a sort of genre of,
it's a genre of
game.
big politics.
Yeah, it's like, is your game past, future, or army?
Yeah. Are you against the Russians, the Koreans, or insurrectionists?
Well, yeah,
or,
exactly.
Americans like using the Russians, triggering a fake war between the Russians and America.
Yeah,
like they call themselves patriots because their motivation is always that in order to make their country ready for the war, they must first cause the war and set off a nuke in their own country to kill enough people to spur the government to protect their country so they wouldn't possibly let a nuke go off.
Also known as GoldenEye.
We're doing the meme, the meme of the brain like going through the stages. So with like Russian would be the basic, and then we're going up to
that's the plot of
Patriots.
At least one season of 24, but one in particular, and Metal
Gear Solid 2
and Modern Warfare. And Modern Warfare not only copies the plot of this particular season 24, but the main bad guy is a Russian arms dealer who loses the same arm. Both of them lose an arm. They lose the same arm, and they both have the same plot.
It's a 50-50.
I mean, I actually started to think maybe they didn't copy this, because if you're copying it, you'd at least change the arm. Yeah. Easiest tweak in the world.
No, we can fool them all by having the same arm, because they'd never think.
The double bluff.
I hope it's really weird, like a Kojima game. That's what I'm hoping for. Do you see the Death Stranding trailer? I think that came out last week, but we didn't talk about it. We talked about it briefly because we mentioned Die Hard, man.
Yeah.
I'm just really excited about it.
I think it sounds actually like it's going to be quietly sort of in amongst all the mad bullshit, just quite a pedestrian, but like straightforward exploration game of just like putting giant ladders on things, which would be awesome.
Well, because Metal Gear 5 was a fundamentally quite a meat and potatoes, very well done stealth game.
You just watch sort of 80 minutes of a mad film that doesn't make any sense with lots of actors in it.
And that's the Kojima way.
Yeah.
You mask, you put a load of bullshit in and then put a really good game in as well.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, isn't it?
I agree.
What have we been playing? Let's talk about that instead.
Yeah. I've been playing SteamWorld. SteamWorld Quest.
Very good week. So.
Hand of Gilgamesh. It's been a heck of a week, hasn't it?
Dang.
We actually divided our time quite well. We all played something
Doing all
different,
the
haven't we?
big good stuff, yeah.
All good stuff.
Yeah.
So this is Imogen Form's latest kind of sort of blundering into another new genre thing that they do. So like, they're a really small studio, I think Swedish, and they have made a tower defense game based in their SteamWorld universe, which is basically cartoon robots.
Wait, which game is that?
It's called SteamWorld Tower Defense.
Really?
That was the first game. That was really
wow,
old.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Then SteamWorld Dig, which was a kind of a Metroidvania thing based on, what was it? Oh God, I can never remember the name of it. Basically where you dig down and you get stuff, minerals and things, which you can invest to get feed for. It's really good. And then there was, SteamWorld Heist, which was a tactical, like a turn-based platformer.
Yeah, it was like Slide on XCOM.
Yeah.
With ricochets.
Yeah, with ricochets. And that's really good. So this is, a card-based RPG battler, thing where you are playing as a team, as a party of, 3 robots, and each of them has on the surface, it looks quite a lot like, say, The Spire, but actually it's got shitloads of its own ideas, like all of their other games that have gone into genres that, that are already established. This one has shitloads of its own ideas, and actually it's not that useful to think about it like, say, The Spire at all. So each of the robots you have when you go into combat has his own hand of cards. Or its own deck of cards, yeah. And then those cards are then dealt into a hand, for your turn. I think it's 6 cards that you get to choose from. And then when you play 3 of those cards, but you're restricted on which ones you can play with a kind of an energy system. It's kind of represented by a little gear icon. Some of those cards.
Interesting too, because in Slay the Spy, you have like 3 mana and you spend, each card costs a certain amount of mana, and this, playing most cards gains you cogs or whatever it is.
So there are basic attacks which deal small amounts of damage, or sort of fairly straightforward effects like a health barrier, so that, it's like a shield almost. Those kind of things, basic attacks and effects will earn you a cog, but then the more powerful ones will spend those cogs. So you're always thinking about, do I want to spam some simple things now and then reap? And then because your hand stays consistent between turns, you can basically stock up the 3 remaining cards for knowing that you'll have them on your next turn. So you're thinking about those kind of questions. And there are loads of other things you're thinking about at the same time. So one of the things about Slay the Spire, obviously, as Tom has talked about a lot, is the fact that you ultimately, through a run, you make a machine. You make a kind of a card dealing damage machine, which is, through the synergies of the different cards. And that's the fun of the game. With this one, there are so many strategies or ways to approach each hand that you don't really build a machine. You more build opportunities, really. So there are, so you're going to be thinking about, I need some cogs, so I'm going to have to build up some cogs and just accept I'm not going to do much damage this turn. You might get a card which...
the cogs carry over as well,
They carry over as well, yeah. You might get a card or you might have one of the cards and you get dealt it, which has additional damage if you play a card of a certain type with another one of the characters. And you might have to gamble, like this would be really useful to play this right now, so you might gamble that that card of that type for that character comes up and you're going to be able to play it in the next turn. You might be thinking about the fact that if you play one character's cards, all 3 of the cards that you play are for one character, you get a 4th attack, which is based on the weapon that they're carrying. So that's another thing you're thinking about. And there are like a bunch of other things. So you're basically thinking about when you're choosing your deck, you're thinking, or decks, you're going to be thinking about what's going to have the opportunities, you know, but also think about roles. So there's a giant frog guy who has loads of health, but he also is a health you know, he's a healer mostly. So he is good for playing a support role, and there's a magic role thing, but they all have fairly, you know, they're all quite fluid in the roles that they can take in the team. They can all deal damage, and they can all, mitigate damage to extents. Or there's another type of card where, you know, it'll boost fire for one of the characters. So now if I play that on one character, and then I want the magic dealer now to play fire cards, but then the magic dealer in their hand, they might be full of ice cards. So, you know, you might need to organize the deck. And like, they're in their deck, they only have 8 cards, and that is a very low figure. Like, it is really painful thinking about what you're going to have.
So you start with 3 characters. I've heard there is at least one more character in the game.
I've come across that character, and I'm pretty sure, and I haven't actually unlocked them yet. I've played for about 3 hours, and I'm somewhere in Act 1 still.
I'm curious whether when you get a new character, do you add them and now you have more than, like, 'cause 3 times 8 is 24, so that's your total deck size all the time, right? So if you add a 4th character, do you actually have a bigger deck, or do you replace somebody?
I suspect that, I don't think, you know, I was thinking about that, and I suspect, and this is kind of silly not to know this really, but I don't think the game could support 4 characters. I think it would feel really ungainly to have all those extra cards, because as it is. So one of the little things with this game is that when your character dies, you not only have to deal with the fact that you've got a whole character not dealing damage, but also their fucking cards are getting dealt into your hand. So
you can't play them because they're dead.
You can't play them because they're grayed out. But you do, in every turn, you get 2 redraws.
I found that penalty for death. So I played it up till the first proper boss. Actually, no, I beat at least one boss. So I don't know. I played maybe 40 minutes or something. And somebody died kind of unexpectedly. They had quite good health. They were one of my healthier characters, and he just took him out and with a combo of hits I didn't know he could do. And then my hand was like half her cards. Yeah. And it's insane because you've lost, losing like one of your 3 health bars basically is a big deal. And then in Slay the Spire terms, it's like 8 of the cards are not only not available to you, but they're replaced by curses. Like in Slay the Spire, a card you can't play is a curse, and it's a huge deal to have those in your hand. It absolutely fucks you. Having like 2 curses is a huge pain. Having like 8 curses in your deck is just game over, basically. Yeah. So as soon as one person was down, like immediately next turn, I lost another person, and then
because now all of the incoming damage is concentrated on just 2 of the characters. Yeah.
So it was a huge snowball. It was like if you lose one person, it feels like it's over.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't actually died yet. I haven't sort of wiped yet, and I've had 2 battles where I have gone down, and I've been able to hold on. That was quite long.
I also didn't realize I had a bunch of some like potion things I could have drunk, which it was too late once they're dead, but I can drink them with the living people. In
my classic Slay the Spire sort of way of playing, I've completely forgotten about the potions too. But it's really breezy and fun.
Have you been reading the dialogue?
I mean, no. The funness mostly for me is in the artwork and just the music and that stuff. The dialogue, I mean, it's a bit chatty.
It was very similar to me to Druidstone, where I gave the dialogue a chance for a few lines, and it didn't offend me exactly, but I was just like, no, I don't think I have time for this.
I mean, there's probably twice as many lines as there needs to be for any one scene.
Same with Druidstone. It's crazy. Like, for some reason I guess there's probably like a genre of game where like, they know it's not, I mean, like Diablo, they know it's not about stories, so they don't interrupt you with huge amounts of it. It's like, there's some text there if you want to read it, but the actual critical path will be like 1 or 2 lines from each character, and then they get on with it. And then there's, feels like Druidstone and this both they're pleased with the tone they've gone for, and they want you.
They're very pleased.
Would you like a lot of this?
I get the feel, a lot of its references, it feels very JRPG in its references. Like there's the music in the area that I'm in the, first act it is massively, referencing Chrono Trigger, and you've got a big frog, which is like the frog out of Chrono Trigger. And I think that some of the chattiness is JRPG, inherited, which is, I definitely like the inheritance that they're going for, but like, yeah, less chat, please, less chat. But it's it's generous and light. And for me, the difficulty, I'm playing in like middle difficulty. The difficulty is that, I found with all of their games, it's pitched at a really flow supporting difficulty, where it's the exact ground between feeling challenged and a bit, scared at point. Well, not scared, but, of feeling a bit challenged at times, but then I just get through and I'm on to the next and I'm eager to do it.
Can you change difficulty at any time?
Don't know. Probably you'd think, but I don't know.
Maybe I should.
I don't know. I mean, the battles, I was about to say that before, the battles are really long, like surprisingly long. Although actually,
yeah, I thought that because I just played, the tutorial for Void Bastards, there's almost a forced fail or you're expected to die at the end of it. And it's the first time I got to a boss and they had like 400 health and I must have fought until I was like, I don't know, 50 or something. And I actually thought like, oh, maybe you're supposed to die to this guy, but nope, you really are. You really have to take them out. That one I did take out.
And you're kind of, only get taking, you get dealing about sort of 20, 30 damage per turn, aren't you?
I think it's also just the numbers are just bigger than Slay the Spires.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I had a battle yesterday with two characters, one of which was 1,500 and the other one was 1,700. And I'd also been fighting that type of enemy just beforehand. This was like a boss version of that. And like, oh shit, this was one of those, it's one of those kind of ogre-y type enemies that is constantly buffing its damage over time. So your interest is to get rid of them as fast as you can. And so, oh God, but oh wow, I've taken off half and this suddenly feels doable.
Have you had any like tactics that you pulled off where you're sort of, the feeling I love in Slay the Spire is when you it's not just finding out two cards that work together. It's like, oh, if I have +2 strength and I'm using this thing that hits 8 times and I've got this relic that means everything that costs 0 does 1 extra damage, and for every 3 attacks I play I get a free energy point, and that kind of like, oh my God, it just keeps stacking and stacking until I have this incredible killer combo. Do you get that?
No.
Okay.
No, I haven't had that, and I'd be surprised if that does happen.
Yeah,
because
my experience so far was it was sort of tame.
Yeah, no, it really is. It really is. And I think that because you've got, those 24 cards and they're all very different. And the way that I've laid out my decks is that I desperately want that. I want 2 men's, but I also definitely want that one. That sounds really good. So it's just one of each type of card, except for a couple of the really basic, important ones, And so therefore my hand is just a fucking gobbledygook, yeah. And I'm just sort of, that'll do. I'll just get that laid out and it's all good. So maybe you could engineer that if I was much more, but then you're also designing these hands across 3 different characters or maybe 4 if they, So but like I said, I think that it's more about making sure there are opportunities to deal with moments, opportunities to deal damage, but also opportunities to deal with problems as they come in. Oh shit, like, oh fuck, my healer's just been hit badly and I need to be able to get heal in. But I really enjoying it. It's really good.
How far would you say you're through?
So I'm in Act 1 still. I don't know how many acts there are, and I've played for about 3.5 hours. So it's generous. It feels pretty generous. But obviously, I believe there isn't any, I think that the story is it. There isn't some kind of,
right,
infinite mode or something. Infinite mode, yeah.
There's a robot with a bird cage for a head that has a canary in it called Captain Canary, I believe.
Yeah, which I think is good.
Yep.
Noted, thank you.
I was in favour of that.
You've been playing more Void Bastards?
Yeah, I finished Void Bastards. I think I just started playing it when I spoke about last week, and that game is the upgrade screen, basically. Like, that is everything I care about, and that's what pushed me through it. And it's a really good upgrade screen. Like, the stuff that, like, everything you find on the ships, you never find like a weapon on a ship or any actual like new tool. All you ever find is crafting ingredients and ammo. And the crafting ingredients, 90% of them are just sort of going to your materials, bucket and very, very slowly work you towards being able to build a new part. The main thing you're on a ship for is to like get one particular part, and every ship has a different one, and unlocking a new weapon will be like 2 different parts. And so you only need 2, but there has to be these 2 specific parts, and finding those, if it's a, powerful rare weapon, those parts will be ones that you only find on the deeper depths, which is where everything's harder. And if you just don't happen to find that thing that you need for this particular weapon, you can eventually craft it with those materials, but it's like, you're picking up, as I think I said last time, a foon is 2 slag. And, some of these parts cost, 280 slag. So it's a fuck of a lot of like trash.
That's 140 foons.
Yeah. It's a lot of foons. And, although you can do slightly better if you find the sort of engineer factions have a special workshop room that will upscale loot, and they have a different machine for each category of loot. And I can't remember what a foon would upscale to, but I do remember all the bio ones, which is a finger will upscale to a hand. Uh-huh. A hand will upscale to a heart will upscale to a head.
Okay.
A head is the ultimate bio trash. It's worth like 50 bio. And there's I can't tell if this is a joke or not, because it's also, I think it's real, but when you upgrade like a AAA battery, it upgrades to a AA battery, and then you upgrade it again, it's a battery.
Okay.
Is that like a type A battery, or is that actually a joke about it? It's just a battery now. And then it goes to like a C battery or whatever. That's worth a lot of volts. But yeah, that whole, man, I don't think I've ever really, crafting's always kind of worked on me in that, like, if it's there in like a Far Cry game or something, I'll get into making my bigger wallet from the shark skin or whatever. But this might be the first game where it's the whole point of the game and it's really working for me. Like, it's a really good crafting system because I want all the upgrades a lot. Like, of course I want to unlock a new weapon, and then almost everything that you unlock has upgrades to it as well. And the upgrades they're not like 5% more damage. They are, for the Riveter, which is like the rapid fire gun, just double damage. It just does twice as much if you get that upgrade. Or the Bushwhacker, which is like a proximity thing. One upgrade will make it arm, like it used to take like 3 seconds to arm. You throw it out, and so you have to wait for it to arm. So it's very much a trap. And then the first upgrade, I think, changes that to like 0.5 seconds or something. Like, it's insanely fast to arm. So you can basically use it as a grenade. And then the one after that triples its damage. So they all like, each one is focused on something. It will never do like a bit of rate of fire and a bit of damage, or a bit of this and a bit of that. It's always like one thing dramatically increased. So everything makes that weapon dramatically different. Can you,
with the crafting materials, are you able to make choices that increase your chances of getting a particular crafting material?
Not your chances, but you can, what you do is on that menu, you pick an upgrade you want and say track this, and then it will highlight on the map which ships have the part you need. And sometimes I think it only ever picks one ship, so you'll need 2 parts, but it'll only show you where one of them is. And it's usually several jumps away. And early on, it would be a problem for me that the parts I needed for the weapons I really wanted were just at deeper depths, and I didn't have good enough kit to take on those enemies yet. If I boarded one of the ships, I'd be running away from everything, and that isn't really viable. Something I was expecting it to be a bit more of an immersive sim than it is. It's very much a loot shooter. It's a Borderlands type thing. Stealth is notionally in there, but only in the way that it is in like BioShock. I would say even less than BioShock, because BioShock at least had a tonic that would make you invisible when you stay still. This has, as far as I can tell, no stealth tools. It has one gun that's silent that poisons them, but that only works, so it being silent, and they also don't feel it, is only useful if you remain undetected, of course, and there are no tools to help with that as far as I can see. There is one gene trait you can get randomly that will make your sprinting silent, but again, that doesn't actually really help. Sprinting's not the problem. Walking is already silent, so and you never really need to move fast in a stealth situation, and I just was almost never undetected. Enemies, once you're in their line of sight, they aggro instantly, and you don't have any intel advantage over them. You don't know where they are before they know where you are, and that's kind of the core of a stealth game, is you need to know where people are before they know where you are, otherwise it's over. So it's really just a shooter. It's not really, aren't really viable other approaches. And I think last week I was pretty positive about the shooting. The shooting is I'll downgrade. I think last week you asked me if it was fun, and I said yes, and I'll downgrade that to it's fine. It's sometimes it feels good enough, and it never became like a chore to kill things. It was always relatively satisfying to kill things. It wasn't the point of the game. If it was a pure shooter with no upgrade stuff to keep me hooked, I don't think I would stick with it. But there's one combat dynamic that really worked in a really cool way, which was there's an enemy type, the Zek, which is short for exec, I think, who has a shield that that covers her from all frontal damage, and just nothing can get through it. Even the gun that can shoot through windows can't shoot through the shield. But she actually doesn't have very much health at all, so if you can do any damage at all from the side or the back, she'll be taken out. And so you can lay traps and stuff, and to some extent that works, but really the situation you need to worry about when you're picking what to take on a ship, you can only get to pick one direct weapon, one indirect, and one gadget. And when you're picking what to take, if you're dealing with them, they're a big enough problem that you kind of want the situation you're scared of is when I'm not expecting one and I walk around a corner and they're there and they're firing rockets at me. What have I got to deal with that? And throwing down a bushwhacker is not going to work. So we take the rocket launcher, or the nebulator, as it's called, and figuring out where to shoot a rocket so that the splash damage will hit her from any other angle but the front works. It's just a really interesting thing because it's both skill-based and strategy-based. And although it's the fastest way to take her out, so it's kind of the action way of doing it, but also sometimes you're just in a situation where like, fuck, there's no way I can get splash damage behind her, so I need to get out of the situation, go around a corner, and then when you go around a corner, you're immediately looking at what that corner looks like, what the shape of it is, where the geometry is there something on the ground that I can kind of like hit the back of so that it'll splash back? And that is just a really interesting, like, dynamic that I never got tired of. Unfortunately, that's probably the only enemy that really pushes you to come up with a new tactic. Like, everything else is just either it directly attacks you and you just mow it down, or there are loads that sort of disappear or run away from you, and, then you just chase them down and kill them. Like, there's not, that is a bit different, but it doesn't, lead to anything especially interesting. But yeah, the main thing that drew me through is just like, those upgrades are so tempting, and the system for progressing towards them is so satisfying. The fact that that tracking system is really good, because you get to be intentional and say, this is the thing I care about. I really, really want this weapon. Just tell me what I got to do to get it, and I will fly wherever I need to fly, and I'll kill whoever I need to kill. And of course, it sometimes has that thing of like, you arrive at that ship and you look at what's on that ship, and one of the enemy types is the Screw, which is just sort of explicitly the enemy that you can't really take on directly. Like, they're just too tough. So it can just be like the worst ship that you want to deal with, but it's got the one part you need, so you might as well board it and then just see, is there some way I can get to that part quicker? Yeah, and that stuff really works really well.
It's interesting. I was just thinking because SteamWorld Quest has crafting in it, where you're crafting new cards, and the crafting items just come in. You have a battle and you see a little animation of stuff going in a bag or something. And I still don't have I couldn't tell you what any of these crafting materials are. Couldn't tell you whether I have any kind of way to manipulate what they are. I couldn't tell you what kind of cards it may as well not be there. It really, really doesn't need to be there at all. Yeah. All I know is that there are some crafting materials I don't have, so I can't have those cards, and that's it. But it's meaningless to me because I have no idea where to get that from.
With Void Busters, I was almost never really looking at what materials I needed. Like, the part you need that's the big unique thing that's valuable. You get one off per ship. And I'll focus on those and I'll chase those. If I can't find that part, or it's very difficult to get to that part, I never really looked at like, oh, what kind of material do I need? And let's go and seek that out. Cause you can to some, like, if you need a load of bio, you go to a medical ship and that will work to some extent. But I don't know where you go to get slag. I don't know where you go to get plas or volts. And so that kind of, I didn't engage with that, but I didn't have to either, because it's really good at just telling you, here's the parts you have enough stuff to build. And when, from the main screen where you're looking at all the different weapons that are available and stuff, when you mouse over one of those, it pops up with what you need to build it. And if it's a thing you have, it's in green. If it's a thing you don't have but could build with the materials you have, it's in blue. And if you can't build it either, then it's in grey. And so you just immediately know, oh, I could craft this right now. And you do it.
When you say you've finished it, Does that mean the as in ending of game, or you've gotten everything?
No, both actually, but, well, I've got everything I want now and yeah, I'd got nearly everything by the end because the main quest line is the way you progress towards it is the exact same way you progress towards the upgrades. It just, instead of you picking a weapon saying, tell me where I need to go to get the things I need for this, it tells you, oh, you need a ID card printer. That requires these 3 parts. Go and find them or craft them. And they're the same parts you can use for weapons. That I actually really don't like because it means that progress towards finishing the game is instead of progress towards getting any upgrades.
Yeah.
So you just have to stop getting any fun stuff. It's just like, instead of doing the thing I'm really motivated to do, you've really successfully made me want these things and made me enjoy making progress towards these things. Now you're asking me to just stop making progress. Just don't get anything fun for a while.
So
do the main
it is
quest.
also kind of a resource game, right? Because you've got fuel and food and things to consider.
Yeah.
Because that is like, that mechanic is, that is not totally uncommon in a roguelike sense, or even in something like an XCOM game where, you know, it's going to ask you to build the Gollop chamber or whatever. And so you, so you therefore have to start directing your kind of, money and time towards something that only gives you plot advancement rather than however you must balance things. I can see the case to be made for forcing you to consider some other costs alongside your regular.
There's an XCOM. So early on, I didn't resent this so much. And then one of the reasons it got to be a chore was it became clear what the pattern of the plot was, which is they just tell you need this thing, and then when you get it, there's some bureaucracy-themed reason for why it's actually futile and you need a different thing instead. And that's a joke, and it's just the same joke every time, and they just do it 4 or 5 times when the game ends. So it's it's really stressed to you how futile this is and arbitrary. It's just, you need this for some reason, go get it, and that they successfully made me feel that was futile, which counted against the game. Whereas in XCOM, sometimes the thing you have to build for the plot does lead to interesting new stuff, like now you've got psychic people or some special thing. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't, and it's just plot, but I don't know that in advance the first time I play, and so I'm kind of like, sure, I'll build a shadow chamber, let's find out what that does. And even when it doesn't give me any cool new abilities, it sort of fits the theme and the fantasy of like, oh, we've got to interrogate this weird alien and we've got to research it, and I think I felt alright about doing that.
So having now done that, do you go back and play with the toys you've unlocked? No. You're shaking your head.
I tried that today. I was, needed a break from Outer Wilds, and I thought, I'll go back to Void Busters because I was enjoying that. And I'd finished it. I finished the plot, and then at that time there was like 1 or 2 upgrades for weapons. I already had every weapon I wanted, but some of the weapons I wanted, I already had. I didn't have the upgrade for, and I didn't need it anymore because I wasn't really working towards anything, but I played for a little bit longer after I finished, because you can sort of go back to just before you finish the game, and got those, and then didn't actually try them out because
I ticked them off.
Now there's nothing to wait for. And so I fired it up again today and went back to that character and thought, like, the 2 questions are, do I want to continue playing now that I have everything? And the answer is no, because there's nothing to work towards. And the other question is, do I want to start again and lose all these upgrades and go back to the start of this tree? And the answer is no. This was like, I enjoyed the process of getting them, but I don't think just sort of losing them all again.
Because it's the same set of upgrades every time then.
Yeah.
So that would be a different, some roguelikes would do that differently where,
I was half interested in like, I wonder if I started again, maybe I'd like, which upgrades I find the parts for soonest would be different, and I'd be sort of doing a really pistol-focused run or something. I don't think it really supports that, A, because you can just seek out what you want. You can just tell it, I want this, where is it? And B, I don't know, like, the pistol, I did go back and just try, now that I've got all the upgrades to the pistol, what is it actually like? And I tried it, and it's like, it's not very good. I still don't really like the pistol. And there are other weapons that are fun, but unfortunately, I think there were just weapons that are just straight up better. Like the Riveter is just the best direct weapon for almost every enemy, except for that Zek thing I mentioned. And the Zapper is the best gadget because it can take out all security, and it's really good against almost all organic enemies as well. And there's ammo for it just everywhere. And so it does kind of devolve into like, oh, these are just the best. And so that makes it starting again and trying something different. I'm sure I would find some virtues of the other things that I wasn't familiar with and to get more use out of them, but I would still know the Zapper's just better than this. But I really enjoyed my time with it.
Yeah. So you said you've been playing Outer Worlds as well?
Yeah. And Chris, you have?
Yeah, as have I. So, I had not played, to clarify, I played an hour and a half of the Outer Wilds, which means I feel qualified for other people to tell me about the Outer Wilds. And I think we should obviously not spoil things.
Yeah.
Cause it's quite a spoilable experience. But it's kind of interesting because I was obviously aware of it from, I think, the previous time it was talked about on the pod, but that feels like it's such a long time ago that I really can't remember much about what was said. Remember.
So tell me, in what way is it easily spoilable? Is it just because it's completely about
structurally
finding things?
I think
is it structural kind of like, whoa, this is playing around with how a game works, or
yeah, it is.
Right,
so
right.
I think you kind of have to say one thing about the structure, even if it's not the full presentation of it, simply to understand what it is. So, because I went in knowing nothing, and it's kind of interesting because, so for context, the reason it's weird is that it just sort of came out. And I've been aware of it for years because it won the IGF like 3 years ago.
Yep.
And now it's out. And I haven't been involved in the IGF judging or anything for many years. And so I don't really pay that much attention. And because I tend to not play games until they are out, don't tend to play early access, this is one of those ones where it just sort of was waiting and I sort of avoided knowing much about it. So the experience of going in, completely blind basically is, I think, a really, really nice one. And it's a really charming game. And I don't want to, it's tough. Like, I think obviously if you want to play it completely unspoiled, I kind of recommend doing so.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good game. So maybe, skip ahead to questions or something if you don't mind like a small structural spoiler, but the structural spoiler is important because it
it's very hard to talk about
what it is. It's very hard to talk about. So but the broad strokes is, it is an exploration centric mystery solving game, basically. I think when we were having dinner the other night and you described it as somewhere between Heaven's Vault and No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
And I think that is it, but it's very different to both of those things. It's in that sort of wheelhouse, and it's space exploration fantasy in the way that those games are, or folklore, or sort of, you play as an alien from a little world, and the worlds in this solar system are tiny, and they're only sort of kilometers away from each other. They're like the kind of the orbs in Mario Galaxy, basically. And you're off on a space adventure, and it mixes sort of kind of like folksy kind of, inventiveness in what planets look like. And, a planet might just be a rock with a little building, a little campfire on it, and a little wood and that kind of thing. With some reasonably sort of detailed space things. So your spaceship is sort of jetting around in zero G in not a realistic fashion, but you control it like a lunar lander. Basically, you're kind of constantly trying to like fling it at planets and then, touch down on a new world and get out. And you have sort of granular control over your gear. So you have like a spacesuit that you put on, a little jetpack, and you can hover around outside your craft in zero G to repair things manually and do little spacewalks and things like that. And it's all these like it's full of little small actions and interactions and conversations with cool looking aliens. And, really early on, one of the first interactions in the game, if you are interacting with everything, is just to toast a marshmallow on a fire for a bit.
There's a really involved system for that as well.
There's
like 6 different controls for it, and you get analog control over how you position the marshmallow in the fire and all this stuff.
And actually, the thing it reminded me of straight away before I sort of figured out, this is the conceit of the game, was Beyond Good and Evil. I think that's probably the tonal touchstone for it. It's because it's science fiction, but it's not quite animal people, but it's kind of cool, cute aliens and kind of, I'm trying to think of a word for it that isn't sort of cutesy, but there's sort of a kind of folksy sort of aesthetic to everything. And if everything feels sort of like nailed together and almost sort of fairy tale like, even though it's in space.
It's kind of campfire sci-fi.
Yeah. And even though some of the broader, like, there are sort of serious space phenomena in it, which are presented not necessarily in a realistic way, but its sci-fi ideals go quite extensively towards SF and then towards fantasy in the same direction at the same time. It's kind of cool.
Actually, now that you mention it, the tone, like in terms of like on the levity to seriousness spectrum, it's not that far off stuff like Druidstone and SteamWorld Quest, but this really works for me in a way that those didn't. And I think it's because it's not focused on making jokes at you. It's more focused on just being very like sweet and kind of good hearted. Like there's just so many like really nice people sort of, being earnestly like interested in stuff.
Like an example is you have this scanner scope, and it's effectively there's a navigational tool and a puzzle solving tool, and it allows you to pick up sound from different worlds. It's like a telescope, but for music and sound, basically. And you can tune it to different frequencies, and different explorers that have gone out before you each took a different musical instrument with them. And when you know what they are, and you hear a flute coming from a distant world, from the surface of wherever you're on, you know, oh, that's where they are, and maybe you can go and find them. And then that's used as the basis for storytelling and puzzles and things.
Every astronaut before you hit that, they all took a musical instrument, and now that is all they do is sit wherever they ended up, just playing that musical instrument forever.
Yeah.
And there's no I've met them all now, and there's no narrative reason why they would specifically be doing that. It's just that they, they got there and like, okay, I've looked around, and it's pretty cool here. I'm just going to play my banjo for a while.
That's the thing. That's what I mean. I think you're right when it says it sort of feels sort of sweet and kind of, good natured. But the conceit, the structural conceit is you have 20 minutes to explore, and then it starts again. Basically, after a sort of introduction, and this is tied to the plot, and there's reasons, and the first time that happened, it took me completely by surprise, and it's an enormously effective moment.
You can experience that in so many different ways as well, and also you can just not experience it. The first couple of times I just didn't experience it.
I was going to, you can, and similarly, if you die, you start again. Basically, that's kind of the way it works. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons you might not hit the hard reset is because you die for some other reason. For context, anyone who knows what I'm talking about, I was trying to repair my ship outside it. And when the reset happened, and that was genuinely oh no, oh shit. But basically, so the idea is, but your character knows that this has happened. So you retain all the information you had. And
that is it, as far as I can tell. So far, I've never had anything except information carry over. So it is persistent, like your ship's computer remembers all the things it knows from previous runs, but it's not like a Metroidvania where now I've got the special tool. Like Minute is a game where you have the same minute over and over again, but you get tools that you persistently take with you. This doesn't have that as well. Yeah,
Minute, but what if 20 minutes?
20 minutes. I think it's 22 minutes, isn't it?
Right, yeah. And so, you go on these little jaunts, and so the game space isn't massive, but it's about doing a mission, deciding what your mission's going to be based on what you would, you might be trying to, get to the next step of the thing you were investigating last time. You can translate alien text and get clues and things, and it has quite a smart journal system where it updates really frequently with quite useful notes. So, and it's presented as a branching map, which is the kind of what your job is to kind of map out all of these different branching paths. So when a new journey begins, you just pick, I'm going to go investigate this tree, and then you kind of fly off in that direction and encounter whatever kind of space phenomenon you encounter on the way.
I had a really nice moment with that journal system today where there was a sort of mystery I was trying to solve, and I looked back to remind myself of what I'd learned from a particular place, and I looked at the notes for that, and it didn't tell me anything I didn't already know, but it was just its choice of what I wrote down. It's written from your perspective. You've written these notes, but my character chose to note down these two facts. Like, when I do X, Y happens. And I knew that already. But suddenly I was like, oh, and actually now...
That's significant.
At the time, Y was useless to me, but now Y would actually be really useful.
Yeah, right. And then I think, so for all of the space exploration stuff, and it is, it's very good at, despite the sort of the twee scale of space, if that's everything quite little, it's very good at having sort of a little touch of kind of cosmic terror of various kinds. Yeah. Right? It was interesting playing it after observation, actually, because there are certain elements of just staring into the beyond that both games do in completely the opposite tonal kind of approach.
It's a really interesting comparison to No Man's Sky as well, because they're so similar in what they set out to do, and they're both games where you seamlessly take off from a planet's surface and go to another one. That's a big feature. And this is just the polar opposite approach, where scale is tiny. It's small even for a single solar system, and in No Man's Sky a single solar system is fucking nothing. But not just all handcrafted, but intensely handcrafted. Like, every world has been sort of, chiseled so that every corner of it has intricate secrets, and just everywhere you go, you're stumbling over deeply, authored stuff and mysteries and secrets and stuff. And No Man's Sky has mysteries and plot and things, but very spread out throughout this massive procedural thing.
Yeah. And I think but I think the comparison that actually makes sense for it, despite that being what you do is hop around in this little lunar lander, is it's kind of more like Her Story and Obra Dinn, really.
I was thinking Majora's Mask.
Although I think obviously Majora's Mask is a more traditional adventure game. right? Like this is about what you know.
Yeah.
And then what that allows you to then go on and find.
Right.
So, which is what it's like Her Story. Like Her Story is like once you've assembled certain facts, the next thing you search for is really obvious.
And I think, so I think of it that way as well. It's kind of an information game, partly because information is the only thing you take with you on a new run. And I played it 3 years ago for the IGF judging. And I loved it then as well. At that time, it was completely unknown. Just never heard of this thing. Never heard of the people who made it. Never heard of, completely out of the blue. And it's one of the things that kind of gave me faith in the IGF was like, you really can. If your thing is good enough and is in the IGF and someone plays it, like, me and, anyone else who played it early on before it kind of, got attention were just yelling about it in the comments. Like, everybody play this right now because you will not believe it. But what's weird is that back then I didn't think of it as an information game. And I played it for a significant amount of time. The game is obviously 3 years less developed than it is now. And I knew there were things out there to discover. I was finding weird phenomena and trying to understand them. But now the finished version with all of it's got so many little features and ways of explaining itself and ways of leading you into the right things. It's very, well designed in that way now. It literally has, not literally a red string board, but that layout of like things mapped to each other in this, like this is connected to this is connected to this, and there's a big question mark here. You don't know what this is, but it's connected to this, and go and look in that. And it's really good at pointing you into that stuff. And now it really feels like, oh, this is a whole interconnected web of mysteries that all make sense together. And as I've played a lot of it now, and, it's so exciting when you realize like, oh, this whole thing that I've been discovering for ages, weird phenomena, because I just bumped into this other thing. I now realize how that relates to it and how it actually, you're learning about the backstory of this place, and it's both filling in the narrative and it's solving the mystery you're trying to solve and giving you practical knowledge that you can then use on your next run.
Yeah. The other game that I was going to mention in comparison to it is Obra Dinn, because I think it has a similar sort of, solve an environment from a kind of your understanding on it and move on. However, it's far more analog than Obra Dinn, because Obra Dinn is literally, we're going to put you in this place until you've seen the things.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of quiz you on it later. And I really liked Obra Dinn, and obviously a great game, but I think I found it very claustrophobic. Partly because of the presentation, you're very intensely in this place, and, when you've seen every scene and you're going back, it's not hard to navigate necessarily, but I always felt like
it's got a rigid hand on what you can do without you having to go and do something else.
Yeah. And I found it sort of helpful to completely step away from Obra Dinn and then come back a bit later and just task myself with like, just get to the point where you've gotten 3 more things right. Doesn't matter how. Because that helped my brain kind of let go of whatever it is I was getting stuck on or getting frustrated trying to brute force or, the rest of that kind of, I'm trying to describe it like what exactly that feeling is of being slightly stuck within a system that you have some control over, but you can't step back and get like a kind of top level view of where you're at. Whereas, I think one in Outer Wilds, and they're not comparable in a lot of ways, but in that particular way, it's a mystery game or an information game where you have at all times a good sense of what you have and haven't fully kind of explored from the tree, and that helps you guide what you might do next. But also being forced to start again, while not, I can imagine a world where people would be really not looking forward to the idea that, oh, it's an exploration game, but I go back to the start every 20 minutes. I actually really like that because it takes away some of that, fear that you've siloed yourself down down a blind alley, or you're getting too obsessed with one problem, because you're kind of forced to, if you do want to obsess over a particular problem, every 22 minutes, you're forced to get back in the ship and deliberately fly back to it.
Yeah.
And, other things can happen.
All things on the way. And
yeah. And because all the planets are always, when I talk, they're all constantly spinning around the sun, they'll have day-night cycles, and everything is always in motion, literally. Yeah. So it seems quite unlikely that you end up sort of just bashing your head against the same thing in the same context, or enough moving parts that it's likely that something else is likely to happen, or you're going to notice something else.
Yeah. I've had it quite commonly where I'm on my way to do the thing that I intend to bash my head against, and then on the long way I'm like, whoa, what is that? Or like, oh, this thing is now interesting to me. Yeah. And I've also had it a much less figurative version of that, where I'm on my way to where I'm going, and literally another planet just smacks me out of space. Like, everything's moving so much, you can literally just get hit by a planet.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I guess I'm investigating this one now.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's also because I think when I started playing it, I had the sense of the daunting, this is interesting, so maybe it's a closing note on it for me, and this is only after an hour and a half. I feel like the reset is what solves the big town problem. Because it gave me a real bad sense of big town, because I started playing it, and I've struggled to really commit to a long game for a while, right? Particularly an open world game and or something like that. And so getting into this and being early on you get access, you can look at a map and see these are all the different planets there are, and these are all the moons. And I looked at it with the game player's sense of I've got to go to all of these places, and it gives you a few different choices of where to start, for initial pointers, although it doesn't just let you go wherever you want. But I thought okay, break it down for yourself, one thing at a time. I'm doing this. Okay, well, I'll follow this path. This doesn't seem too bad. And then when it reset me, I had that sense of oh shit, this isn't a big town problem, because I don't have to worry about not finding everything in one run, because that is impossible. And as soon as you tell me that's impossible, stop worrying about it. It's I'm going to take a small task, and that is sufficient for now.
And it's also really cool, partly because the nature of the things I end up doing, that my life does not matter. If I get somewhere and I discover something interesting, how the fuck am I going to get out of here is not so much of an issue. The game, interestingly, does seem to always support it. There always does seem to be a way to get out of the place that you got into. But, a lot of these things are at you've got 22 minutes at most, and a lot of these places take about that amount of time to going to get to you. 15 minutes in, you've just got to the thing, and now you're reading it does a really nice thing where anytime you're reading anything, it pauses the game. I guess that's a really ordinary feature actually, but it's implemented in this very strange way, right? Because you're translating the text, and the game feels like it's still in real time, but actually your little scanning beams, as soon as you're not moving the mouse, they freeze, and time is actually paused when you're reading, because you are always under some kind of time pressure, and it would suck if that was a factor.
Actually, I can't really I don't know what else you could apply it to, but really in abstract, the idea of designing a game around everything you can do in the game needs to be doable within 22 minutes of the start of the game.
Yeah.
And it's a hell of a way of cutting fat. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, I'm annoyed mostly at myself, because there's one area that is intentionally really obtuse to get to, is really circuitous. You have to sort of follow this trail. Doing it the first time is really fun, because it's oh my God, I'm discovering this long, elaborate secret, and wow, look where I'm going now. And then the place you get to is kind of a big town, and you need to go back there. There's a lot to discover there, and you can't do it all in one run, I wouldn't think, unless you already know what you're doing. And I've been, I played the game maybe 8 hours, and I've gone back to the place sort of 10 times, and there are many, many shortcuts to it, and they're all broken in some way. This door opens from the inside, but not the outside. And so on your next run, that's no use to you, because you can't, opening it last time doesn't help you this time. And there were so many of them so conspicuously broken, this thing just fell out, and this thing's, it's blocked up by cacti. Oh, this thing's blocked up in this way, that I thought the game was telling me there is no shortcut to this. You've got to do it every time. It's that Super Meat Boy thing of getting really good at the particular, route in. I did get really good at it. And then just now, when I'm almost completely done with the area, I found a shortcut. There is just and it's not even that well, from the inside, it's not that well hidden. I just happen to have never gone through that door. And when you go through that door, you're I'm right here. I could go here from there. Oh my God.
Yeah. It sounds like this game is a bit kind of Game of the Year-y. Is it as good as that?
Yeah, it was, so it was in the IGF, the same year as Invisible Ink, and I voted for this to win overall, which is saying something. Yeah, it's amazing. And again, another thing that was not evident to me back then, either because it wasn't in there or because I hadn't played it enough. There is so much internal logic to it. So much of it makes sense and connects in meaningful ways that beyond the sort of gamey connecting of things and the sort of adding entries to your log and solving, because it tells you whether there's more to discover in an area. And I am doing the thing where that's a really useful feature, because you visit an area, and there are many where I thought I'm completely done there. I searched for everything, and it says, no, there's more to discover there. And I thought, well, surely I got that. And then I go back there and realize, oh no, I didn't read this, or there's a scroll here, or that kind of thing. That's really useful, but it also becomes a kind of mechanical thing of oh, I've checked that off. I will, well, every time I find a new thing in an area I've already been to, I'll go back to my ship and just check, hey log, have I done this now? Can I go? So that's a bit mechanical, but then there's so much beyond that is just text that I've read that without seeing anything new in the game, after a bunch of experiences, when I then go back to read that same text again with not having gone back to that same place, I just read it and oh, that must be over there. Or that must relate to this, or just the name of that thing makes sense with this thing. And now I realize why they would build this thing. And then I'll keep this incredibly vague and incredibly mysterious, but I was in a situation that I've been in hundreds of times before, looking at the exact same thing that I'd looked at 100 times before today, and I just looked at it and went, oh my God. I've just like cracked a whole thing of this, like a huge mystery in this now makes complete sense, just from watching this time.
Yeah, right. I think the, on the checking things off the list front, I think that is not, I mean, obviously it's mechanically useful, but I think it's also kind of important in terms of feel, because I think ambiguity in terms of whether you finished an area, when you have so much analog mystery solving to do, and I use the word analog for that, what I really mean is things you just got to develop in your own mind. Knowing you have all the information you can have to then try and develop your understanding is just more fun.
Yeah.
Like without that, you stress, right? You end up with informational big town.
Yeah.
And also
big library.
It's like, there's something about this I find really interesting that I don't have the vocabulary to articulate other than by referring to it different kinds of big town, but there's something about like my comfort level with, I find that the promise of all these secrets really, really enticing, as long as you can give me some reasonable reassurances about the actual possibility space. You know what I mean? So there's like, you can certainly miss things or whatever, but I don't want to be overwhelmed by the amount of things I could be doing. Like when I grasped the 22-minute sequence, again, one of the things I did was stay on the first planet and run around checking if the conversations you can have with all the townsfolk changed. And the reason I did that was not because I anticipated that they would, and they don't in most cases. But it was because I just wanted to know that it wasn't expecting me to do all that again.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, cause it essentially there's a preamble before your first journey, and then from subsequent journeys you can just shoot off into space whenever you like.
Yep.
But I sort of wanted to make sure that, like, that thing games do where it's like, oh, you can leave, but we're going to sort of low-key punish you for leaving because, it's the level structure thing of like critical path is right, but if you go left, there will be exactly one health orb.
Yeah.
Like, that school of game design, like ruling that out was really important to me, because as soon as I'd ruled that out, I have more fun. It's because the possibility space collapses in just one particular way. So it's like, oh, okay, you want, the entire game is out there, and I'm never going to be wrong in going that way and not obsessively investigating whether things have changed from one run to the next. And so there's something about that, like where you kind of establish your limits on how much you can hide from the player, or how much they could be having in danger of having the rug swept out from underneath them in terms of expectations, and therefore just saying like, yes, it's very gamey, but you did see everything important in this area. It's really important, because that's actually kind of the opposite of Heaven's Fault, which
forever losing things forever.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you didn't do this, well, you can never do that, and we also assume you didn't want to do things A, C, and D.
Yeah. Whereas like Heaven's Fault, because of the randomization element, it wants you to be over that. It wants
you just to like, this is your fate. This is what you.
Yeah, it wants you to approach it with like, what happens.
Yeah.
And we talked about it at the time that there's an awkward relationship with just how that feels in a game.
Yeah.
Like just the anxiety of, but I want to make choices with not perfect information, but I want to commit to my choices kind of when I know what they are, rather than like real life where you're just sort of feeling your way through.
And a number of games have all made a save before and a choice just to know what the ramifications of the choice are. Like, it's not to save scum. It's more like, I just want to make sure this is the one I want,
I feel like there's an element to almost all games, which is like effective project management. Like, all games, to the extent that games are puzzles, they present you with a problem and then ask you to derive a solution for solving it. So Void Bastards is essentially, you don't have all of these things. You want all of these things. Project manage your way to having all of these things. And then when you have them, the game is kind of over. Like that, that is actually really satisfying. And it feels like that's something Heaven's Vault really wanted to shed, which was the, manage this really carefully, like plan this really carefully. But it's interesting that you almost can't, like it's not you can't, but you're asking a lot from the player in terms of changing their mindset.
Well, yeah, you're talking to a group of people who are used to having to check everything off a list, and if you've missed something, it's a failure. Like that is something as content you've missed and paid for, or it's a failure because you are meant to tick it all off.
This is fascinating. Outer Wilds is like the 22-minute loop thing means that they really lean into it in that all the time in this universe, things are happening irreversibly. Like most of the planets you go to, something dramatic is happening here that can never be undone. It's like you are witnessing this extraordinary event that is going to forever change this world. And if you miss it because you're on a different planet, that's all right. You just go back. Like, you're going to see it as many times as you like. And there are all kinds of things where, like, you know, it's very upfront about what is happening. So it pretty much, even if you come late in that process, you will see what was happening and what effect it had. And there have been a bunch of times where I realized, like, that thing that was unsolvable when I encountered it, that was happening on World X. World X is undergoing this process. If I was like 15 minutes earlier in that process, I don't think I would have that problem. Like, there would be a whole chunk of this world that would still be there that I could then use to solve this problem. And so, like, you just don't see that stuff because either, you know, in a scripted linear game where they're going to force you to look at this particular thing, you know, a world being destroyed or something it's never really going to have that impact because it's always just because that's just what happens in the plot. And that's true here. It's preordained. You're not affecting it or anything. But because it's just going on with or without you and you can go wherever you like, that stuff it both feels meaningful and also you can never miss out on it permanently because you're
that was the magical thing when I played Majora's Mask for the first time, that, you know, it was this, you know, at a time when games couldn't really simulate living worlds, there was this simulacrum world going on where stuff happened outside of your presence.
Yeah, right.
But it wasn't to waste because you could always see it if you chose to stand there at that moment during the day, you know, and that, like, it was fucking magical. Like, felt incredibly, new and kind of, yeah, exciting. Shall we do some questions? I don't know why you're surprised.
I literally thought you'd never ask. We shall and should and will. Kane writes, regards. In Stellaris, like in Crusader Kings 2, you need a casus belli to declare war against another empire. There are quite a few different ones with different requirements, and they determine your victory conditions and what will be imposed on the belligerents based on the war's outcome. Don't know why I pronounced that all weird, but it did. For example, if another empire has ethics that are opposed to yours, you can have a impose ideology casus belli against them. If you win, you return any occupied territory to them, but they have to change their governing ethics to match yours. A recent DLC also added the Colossus, which is a spaceship of some considerable size, not unlike the Death Star. Building one grants you the Colossus casus belli, allowing total war against any rival empire. So basically, why are you declaring war? I've got a really big gun. Building a Colossus also grants every other empire in the galaxy a stop Colossus casus belli against you. So why are you declaring war? You've got a really big gun. What's the most anecdote-worthy reason you've declared war? Hello, Kane.
This was rife throughout my Galactic Civilizations 2 diary, the second Galactic Civilization 2 diary I did, where the whole arc of my goal was to, like, bring the galaxy together in peace and just win peacefully. But then it turned out I was really good at building Death Stars and actually, I kind of, because the Death Star destroys planets, right? The thing I was building destroys stars. So it destroys all the planets around the star as well.
I don't know what you call that.
That certainly
too big naming the first one.
Yeah.
Death Galaxy.
Yeah, that would be the set. Yeah.
That did cause some people to declare war on me, and also caused me to declare war on some people. It's very true to life. Having a giant thing that can destroy planets / stars, definitely the war question comes up pretty fast.
Why did you build it?
Honestly,
this sounds
even
like
though
because
I wrote,
he could,
like, 30,000+ words about why I built it, I don't recall now. I was earnestly going for peace initially. I imagine somebody made that either impossible or annoying. Therefore, I went for, I think it's one of those things where, like, if the things you invest in, I think I was good at building star bases, because I was building cultural star bases to broadcast my TV to them, to make them like me. And then they would flip to me eventually. And if that didn't work, well, I'm already good at building star bases. It's a transferable skill set to then build a Death Star.
What is a Death Star if not a radio antenna with a gun?
Yeah. It's really just, it's still beaming stuff to these people. It's just a different kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think, for me, sort of cartographic OCD starts most wars. So, like, whether in Civ or Total War or Space Game or whatever, I don't really like having, like, a weird little dangly bit of the Empire that sticks out the side. It's nice if the Empire's a big circle or a big square, ideally, or takes up the entirety of the landmass that it's on. You know what I mean? So it's at the very least bordered by the sea. So there's a lot of, like, small border kingdoms and city-states that have been sort of squashed essentially because it makes the map look nicer.
Neatness.
Not weakness necessarily, but like, we would all benefit from this entire landmass being red. You know?
In my Total War Warhammer 2, that is actually literally that was the correct name, wasn't it?
You did it, yeah.
By the name, it seems like Reasons for War is not a big part of it.
You're meant to be doing it, but
What?
I'm surprised about
Total
the
War?
range of reasons, personal reasons I had where, so the one is like, there's a good reason to have, regions, which are usually 3 or 4 cities, because they get a boost in kind of stuff for doing it. So that, like, clearing those up was often a factor. But then also, as you go through the game, I was playing Skaven and I won, and I was very pleased with myself, but, nobody likes the Skaven. And, you know, you can look at people's opinions of you and, like, don't like Skaven is their, like, race aversion.
Yeah.
And it's basically, you just don't like us because we're dirty and nasty and plotting your demise.
Yeah. Who blew up the moon.
Which just seemed, and that just made me nervous. And so I would just declare war simply.
This is why people
to
don't like
remove the
Skaven.
people whose hatred for me would just rise until they would just declare war first. So
It's a vicious cycle.
and then there's the kind of the ones where the AI just decides to just send like an army consisting of 2 heroes at you and kind of skip about in front of your cities for a while.
Yeah.
And like, well, fuck you. Just
That's Casus Belli right there.
Yeah, come in or leave.
Yeah.
Like,
declare war
Reasons for
or
declaring
not.
war on house cats. But do you want to go out or not?
So yeah, but then there's the kind of on the opposite side of that, then there are these pirates that go around, and I suppose it's fine that like it makes sense that the pirate groups would just declare war, but when they've literally just popped into existence, they've spawned into existence, and they immediately declare war, and they're nowhere near you. So what?
Yeah.
We have had enough of you.
And I never saw them, and I was at war with them from the start of the game, like from near to the start of the game to right to the end, and I never ever met them.
It's a war of principle.
Yeah. I think that did happen in my Skaven campaign where it was like, you know, based on stuff that was happening elsewhere on the map, like Chaos Marauders, Norskans have declared war on you. And I'm in like the jungles of the far, far, far south. And like, I think eventually one band of like Norse Marauders eventually like arrived bedraggled from like attrition on a beach somewhere and just immediately died. But they did finally sort of bring that war to bear against people they didn't have any reason to even know about, to be honest. I feel like we basically wandered over some pretty true historical kind of ground
It's
here.
literally true.
Yeah. Our next question comes from Luke, who writes, "Hello, I've been working from home a lot recently, and there's a local neighbourhood dog who is very clearly bored, as it barks almost continuously. I'd say 1.2 kilowoofs per hour. There are some cute videos online where dogs, cats and reptiles try to interact with video games. But have you ever heard of games designed explicitly for animals? Would this be a good idea? Would this increase the rate of barking in my neighbourhood dog from excitement, or quell his need to woof? Thanks for reading, Luke."
I don't know anything about it, but Gunpoint background artist Fabian Van Dommelen made a game for pigs at one point. Like literally to be played by pigs. That is all I know about it though.
In Watch Dogs 3, do you reckon you can play as a dog?
I guess if a dog is an NPC, then it technically...
Oh no, I'm thinking about a dog with Boris Johnson's face. Shit. I really just wanted to use this as an excuse to talk about bees. But most like animal behavior intelligence test sort of experiments take the form of games, basically, like puzzles and things.
Pigeons do a lot of these games.
Yeah,
don't
crows do a lot of them as well.
Yeah.
I'm on a bit of a crow kick at the moment because there's a great crow outside my window learning to fly, and it's the best thing to watch because it's watching someone essentially play a game.
Just so you know, that when Tom and I arrived here this evening, we found him outside with a plate. Yeah, we found the crow's not in sight, but Chris was there
roaming the streets
with some
with a bowl
worms,
of
worms in his hand.
Look, all right. I've had a bit of a couple of days, okay? Because 2 days ago, I noticed this like fledgling crow learning to fly out in the little bit of grass outside the house, and it's the best thing ever because they're so smart, and you watch them problem solve. And it was following paths because paths lead to front doors, and going up the steps up people's front doors to the little walls because most people have live on a hill, so a lot of raised kind of front steps, and then jumping off the front step and trying to fly 15, 20 feet, you know, flap, and then landing and then pottering about again. And they have a brilliant walk, crows. They're very hips forward kind of waddle. It's very good. I like it a lot. And then, long story short, Pip did a tweet thread about this. I think I tweeted it as well. The crow was endangered by a dog that was being walked off the lead. My heart broke in two, and I've basically defended this crow ever since. And so today I just wanted to make sure he was eating. So I was wandering outside with a punnet of mealworms, just seeing, cause he or she has gotten up to, rooftops now. And I was so proud earlier watching it fly from one roof to the other, then walking up to the top of that roof, looking up and visibly going like actually now walking down a bit and then flying from there. It was really good.
Crow Dad.
Yeah. Yeah. Creighton Crow Dad. That's the, yeah. But nonetheless, a lot of these sort of intelligence checks takes the form of basically designing puzzles for animals.
Yeah. You linked us to an article that, establishes that bees can understand symbols for numbers, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I knew bees had a concept of zero. That was my fact.
Yeah, that was a part that's been.
But now we know that they can also look at. I didn't actually entirely understand the methodology, but it involved showing them symbols, and then if they went down the right path, they got some sucrose, and if they went down the wrong path, they got quinine, which is
they don't like quinine.
Punishment for bees? If you'd asked me to come up with something bees don't like, that wouldn't be the first thing, I guess.
Quinine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So they get gin or sugar?
I think it's in tonic water.
Oh, right. No, you're right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they hate that.
And Americans say quinine.
Quinine.
Let's get into
what other
bit.
Please don't send us questions on that. We're still recovering from last time.
What do different in America?
What do bees do different?
Yeah, I think it was bees were put in a place that had like a maze where they would see three objects, and then there'd be two symbols above two passageways, and the correct route would be the one that corresponded.
Okay.
So the number 3 corresponds to 3 items. And they could consistently get that right once they'd learned it. Yeah, go on.
I'd noticed that they specified in the study, like an upside down T meant 3 and an N meant 2. I love the idea that they thought about just putting human numbers, but that would make it too easy. Maybe they already know the human numbers. Let's invent a new language.
But the thing they couldn't do is, reverse the information. So if they learned to go to a number 2 having seen 2 objects, they couldn't then learn to go to 2 objects having seen a number 2.
Ah, okay.
So they can learn symbol to number or number to symbol, but not both, which is apparently, based on the way we process language, 2 different parts of the brain working together, they probably can't do that, which is interesting because, that makes them, dumb. Get good bees.
Get good bee.
And if you want to gently dissuade a bee, you can throw tonic at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck you, bees.
Well, it's a good thought, right? Summer's here. What's the ideal barbecue drink? Probably a gin and tonic.
Just bring with you to a barbecue a glass of sucrose and a glass of tonic. And if attacked by bees, you can decide how to treat them.
Wasps, however, can't count and don't give a shit about quinine.
Yeah, exactly. Love gin, can't count.
That's their motto.
Wasps.
We're not trying to count. That's enough gin.
Someone explained to me, and I don't remember who or where, or whether this is true or not, but it's an interesting B factor. That's what we're on. Apparently, and I love this if it's true.
Fact if true.
Yeah.
New segment.
Have I told this to you guys? Have I said on the podcast before how bees give directions to other bees?
Yeah.
Because it's
They do
related.
like a dance, right?
Yeah, well, they do a dance, but what the dance communicates, because it's related to everything else. It's apparently, I think it was a friend told me this who had done a degree in it, so I assume
Degree
it's
in
true.
bees.
A bee degree.
Bee degree.
She was doing a Falcon degree.
Oh, hang on.
PhD.
We're getting snarled up
There's a joke here. Anyway, bees apparently tell other bees how many objects away something is. Right?
Okay.
So, because they vote basically on where the new hive should be. And it's like, I found this location, it's, I don't know, 1,000 things that way.
But what if they're arguing like, oh no, I was counting that little bush. No, that's not.
Yeah, is that bunch of berries? Is it 8 objects or 1 object?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I guess bees know. But like, so
We can all agree on the basics.
I am massively simplifying something that was explained to me by an actual biologist, but apparently lakes really confuse bees because lakes are one object,
But they're very big.
but they're huge. But I thought, even if this isn't true, it's a really interesting way of conceptualizing distance. Like distance in a sensory sense. It's like, how many new things did you see on the way there? So gliding across a lake, a featureless, like flat surface of water is exactly as taxing as walking past a bush or a branch or an interesting looking fence on your brain, which is kind of interesting. I just thought there was a kind of interesting way of
That's exactly what I was,
time.
when the question came up about, dog, game for dog, I was thinking about, well, look, as humans, we kind of lean on our eyes and ears as our principal sensing, we're very happy to exist in worlds where those are the only senses, that's what we do in games and their principle that, dogs' sensory, kind of universes are quite different. There might be a game for dogs.
I think there might be, because
But you'd have to have a smell-o-vision.
I don't know where I read this.
Smell-o-vision is the dumbest term in the world. Isn't it? Like, they just put the word vision on. Like, vision literally means vision. Like, that's not the right word.
So dogs apparently, their sense of smell is so great they can kind of tell what's happened in a room as well as what is happening. So like one of the things, apparently it's fairly common for puppies to struggle with this because they smell, they can't tell the difference yet between happening and happened.
Yeah.
So it's like they can smell time, basically. So time is overlaid, which is actually a really good concept for a game because it's the sort of, passing, so many detective games have the kind of Batman vision where you get to recreate the crime scene and see what happened. That's just being a dog. So you probably could do like a detective game or something for dogs where you layered the scent of a thing that had happened.
There are those that video of the lizard trying to eat there's a sort of like an iPad
game. Yeah, I think that's referenced in the email as well. Yeah,
with the sort of little kind of bugs on it, and I think there's a frog as well. I don't know, whatever. I don't think that animal's playing a game. I bet that animal's getting really fucking upset at the fact that its tongue is getting bruised against this hard item and not getting anything.
I think the thing is dogs are also capable, I think, of understanding that something is a game, which is an interesting kind of distinction. Like whether
it's it's a social contract, definitely.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like throw this for me and I will return it. Like that is,
But you can't have it.
Now you can have it. Get good, human.
I was watching someone in the park throwing for their dog and they did the fake out thing. Like you sort of pretend to throw it and watch them go. Like, oh, what the hell is the dog thinking about that? Like, Jesus Christ. What do you want from me?
So, my parents' dog that I taught to fetch when he was very, very little and now it's all he does, loves that. But there's really and obviously I know people, you characterize or you humanize what dogs are thinking necessarily, but there's definitely a process that goes on. Now, if you do the fake out throw, there's a lot of staring at you, like you've hidden it, like it's behind you. And then, but the thing, the level of trickery that you have to get to is you have to both not throw it and then immediately hide it. So either in like a pocket or behind something. Because the first thing you'll do is walk around you, looking at you. So like, is it in your hands? Is it behind your back? Then if it isn't there, that's when tail wag like crazy because you've done magic. And like, so it's like smart enough to kind of go like trick and then wasn't a trick, real. And then he'll look everywhere in the entire house. Like, it's really good. But I love the step between like, you know, from like suspicion to like, this is brilliant. So yeah, I think dogs would probably be maybe a more optimal consumer of video games than we are.
Yeah, I'd feel a lot more confident about my ability to entertain dogs than humans.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'd love to, yeah. Maybe VR would be good for dogs. We found out who it's for.
It's find its purpose. Unfortunately, I can't look up though, so they're missing a whole dimension.
Yeah. But that's fine, because you probably don't have to then render that.
To be honest, with a full Vive headset on, they can only look down. It's just going to be straight to the floor, never up again.
Also, they rely so little on their vision that they wouldn't care at all. They would smell the actual room.
You can still smell the normal room.
Yeah. What? This isn't a spaceship at all.
You need smell VR, if you will. Smell of the...
That's all right. Smell, virtual reality all makes sense.
Yeah.
Vision doesn't come into it yet.
All right, fine. We've settled it. Our next question comes from, well, it's actually a story, but it's a good story. Comes from Benj, who writes, Riles? Fucking hell. Hail, Creighton. I see what they did there. I have horse concerns. Regarding your horse naming discussion, I was one of many who bought a Switch on launch day to play Breath of the Wild, and I can't have been more than a day or two into it when I became a proud horse owner. I called that horse Mega Horse in caps, and I didn't know why, or I didn't, or I don't know why, or I didn't, until Chris noted that there is a literal Mega Horse in the game. Mine wasn't one, it was just a horse, but I still named it after a phrase we'd use to describe a much larger horse 2 years in the future. Was this horse widely publicized in Breath of the Wild previews or mentioned in CNC in 2017? Or did I get struck with the most useless bit of limited prescience ever? Name aside, it wasn't even that good of a horse, as the game is mainly about climbing and gliding, and a horse can do neither, no matter what you call it. Thanks for all the pods, and for maybe horse hodoring me.
An excellent verb.
Ben.
I don't think I'd heard of the Mega Horse until last week.
No, I don't think I don't think we had either mentioned the Mega Horse on the
I don't think the Mega Horse exists.
I think
Alex goes a step further.
we've got a horse.
I think you're lying. I think it's time it came out.
You've been tricking dogs and now you're moving on to us.
Yeah, exactly. Like, dangle the Mega Horse.
There's a Mega Horse behind your back.
Yeah, hang on. I'll Google the Mega Horse so you can see
Spin your chair around.
I wonder if here's a good test. Here's a good test. Right. So I called it the Mega Horse because I didn't know what else to call it. In the game, it's not called the Mega Horse, right?
More's the pity.
Like the least bit of Zelda naming ever, right? So I just called it that. But if I Google Breath of the Wild Mega Horse, will it come up? Because that shows that the term is in broader use.
It's just an innate human thing for all human history.
Of course, we all know about the Mega Horse. Do bees know about the Mega Horse? Can we prove that they understand the concept of a horse but bigger?
Scientists spend 20 years devising a test.
There's sucrose on the Mega Horse.
What I tried to do is initially just Google the phrase Mega Horse to see where this would get us. And the best thing here is the fact that Mega Horse is the name of a horse supplement.
Okay.
So there you go.
That explains Mega Horse's origin story.
And its tagline is Horse Mega Horse. Mega Horse. For horse people who know the best shouldn't cost the earth. 100% guaranteed. I have no idea what that means.
All the percents.
Is he going to upgrade your horse?
And also, when they say horse people, do you think they mean people who own horses or centaurs? Is a horse supplement how you become a centaur?
Fuck.
There's a lot more questions.
I think you might have found the dark web.
Yeah.
Did you mean Mega Horse? Last Google. I mean, I did, but... So you wrote Mega Horse all one word, and Google was like,
yeah.
Did you mean Mega Horse? I don't know what your thing is, but there's a thing called Mega Horse.
The images are very good for this, and thank God, relatively safe for work.
Are there any centaurs?
There aren't, but there is a horse dressed as Zero from Mega Man.
Okay, I see it. Is there a card of two horses?
There's also
fighting?
this Pokemon card, which describes the moves of the Mega Horse as Super Kick, which does 30 million damage, and Putch Putch Uppercut, which doesn't specify how much damage that does.
Well, it's implied.
I'm now going to Google Breath of the Wild, Zelda Mega Horse,
Yeah.
which incidentally is an excellent name. Yeah, okay, fine.
Did you mean Zelda Big Horse?
Did you mean Zelda Big Horse? Thanks, Google. In the future, when you type this, it will just be a big Stadia link that will take you immediately to the big horse. Did you mean this big horse? So yeah, the first item here is how to find and tame the giant horse in Breath of the Wild. That's Polygon. And then, YouTube seems to, agree that this is called the giant horse. Entertainingly, the 3 videos suggested are Zelda Breath of the Wild giant horse location, then a giant secret about horses in Zelda Breath of the Wild, and then Red Dead Online sucks mega horse balls.
Man, algorithms have a hard job.
Yeah, they do.
It's quite difficult to say.
We all feel for them.
What's the most relevant thing there?
There's and then there's a super rare horse location, hunt for the giant horse.
Can you put Mega Horse in speech marks and see whether anything comes up?
I also want to see, just click, there's this Reddit thread here about horse names. That's boring. Oh well. So yeah, hang on. So what were you going to suggest?
Put Mega Horse in speech marks. And Zelda.
Did you mean Big Horse in speech marks?
It really wants me to say big horse. So good one from the subreddit here. 2 game-changing tips for the early game. The quote that Google's pulled out is, I'm new to the whole horse thing in Breath of the Wild and don't want to let the mega horse slip through my fingers.
I think that's a sentiment that we can all.
It's a common deathbed regret. Yeah. Let the mega horse slip through my fingers.
Anyone else find tame the mega horse? Someone asks. There's a random non-Velda-rated wiki that specifies that there's a massive spider comparable in size to the mega horse.
A mega spider, if you will. Imagine, if you will, a spider, but like a mega horse in size.
We shall call it the giant spider.
We should call it the big spider.
I think what we've established is mega horse is a less common but understood.
The internet's fighting you on this.
Yeah, name for the horse. I think also, you could have, there's a parallel universe where you called your horse Turbo Horse or something, and you just ended up slightly to the left of my go-to kind of big word, Nonetheless, I think just a moment of synchronicity, just minds reaching out to one another across the vacuum of consciousness.
This whole debate has now given me a whole load of new horse names to use, not really related to what we've been saying, just because I've been thinking about horses a lot. For one thing, I'm looking at a big box set of the Horus Heresy, so now I'm thinking if Horse's Heresy is a good horse name.
Horse Heresy.
Yeah.
Also, Inspector Horse. Horse Code.
I always think of the Horus Heresy as the horse hearsay, just like horse rumors, horse facts.
We've heard of this mega horse.
Yeah, exactly.
But is it just a big horse?
Exactly. The horse hearsay. Minis Monthly, the joke there sneaking in on the side. Yeah, good. I'm glad we,
I think that was useful. I think that was useful. And I think that it means you did Hodor him.
I did, yeah. Did I? Is that the conclusion we reached?
I don't know. Yeah,
I've completely forgotten where I am and what's going on. Did you see the, I think I sent this link to everybody, but the very good AI names for cats?
Yes, I did actually.
Kind of relevant to that. I'll put it in the show notes because it's superb.
It's important information.
What I like about it is the AI generated sinister names for cats. Like Hand of the Master and Serendipitous Kill sound like what cats' names actually are in cat. Like, I'm pretty sure that if a cat introduces itself to another cat, that's its name, right? Like, I am Serendipitous Kill.
They're going to be very, very edgelord.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, and then, like the, what was the X one? It was like Lucius Monsieur. Very good. Anyway, link in the show notes that I've just committed myself to doing. Thanks, me. Our final question comes from Duncan, who writes, "Hello, it's June. And you don't know what that means. It's time for the first annual Game of the Half of the Year. It's often lamented during December's Game of the Year discussions that games at the start of the year are forgotten. So what are your got-hotty or goat-hotty? What's your goat-hotty? Thanks, Duncan. P.S. It's Destiny 2.
Oh, okay.
But as we established, that came out in 2017.
It's the game of forever.
Tom, you got a goat-hotty?
Yeah, I wrote down some candidates. It's tricky, actually. Look, technically Slay the Spire is this year, but I feel like that's spiritually a game of last year.
Yeah. The game came out in the year that its takes came out in.
Outer Wilds is very much a contender. And Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, obviously.
Yeah, it's a great
has to be on the short list.
Yeah.
Cause it's glorious. And then actually Far Cry New Dawn, I really, just all the plot stuff got out of your way more than Far Cry 5 did, which is the main problem with Far Cry 5. And then all the systemsy stuff was way better. It's probably Outer Wilds for me.
We have talked an extraordinary amount over the last 2 podcasts about just skipping story and writing. Alex?
I've really struggled with it because I've kind of bounced. I mean, I think there have been some really good games that have come out in the first half because we went through a list of all the games that we've been talking about since the start of the year, and some really great games that I've sort of bounced off, and none of them I would say that I've spent enough time with and felt strongly enough about to really kind of say anything about them. Destiny 2 is the one that I started the game playing quite a lot of, and then it kind of petered out somewhere in February or so, for me. But yeah, I feel it's my failure. It's my fault. It's my fault.
Mine's almost certainly Sekiro, to be honest. Of game I put a substantial, I said earlier that I've struggled to commit to big games lately, and it's the one that I did finish and really, really loved. I think also up there for me is Totally Accurate Battle Simulator and Mordhau.
Oh god, did you see Totally Accurate Battle Simulator now lets you possess units?
What?
You can, not only you're seeing it from first person, you actually control them.
Yeah. What?
So, for catapults, that's a game changer, because their AI was limited.
80% of that game is trying the same thing over and over again until it inexplicably works.
Yeah. Until that one unit actually does the thing that would be good. But yeah, I want to be a scarecrow, honestly.
You should be a bard.
That's the most overpowered thing in the game. Because the problem with the bards is they run in a stupid direction, get caught and die. I'm actually literally, I want to do that now.
Luckily that was the last question.
Yeah. So Totally Accurate Simulator, and Mordhau, because, I just love its combat so much. I appreciate that's 2 of my top games of the year games with excellent swords in them and big duels, but boy, I love that shit. And Sekiro is amazing for it, and so is Mordhau in its own way. I am still I've now gotten quite deep into a Mordhau Battle Royale hole simply because the thrill of trying to find and kill someone with the first object you find is actually more pronounced in that than I think in any other Battle Royale game, because sometimes you just have a rock.
Beating someone to death with a rock.
Yeah, or a spade, or a poo, or, just a shield. It's very good. It's very good. A lot of good yelling. But yeah, I really need to find out if you could break all of the encounters in Totally Accurate Battle Simulator by just being a bard. So we have to stop now. Sorry. If you would like to send us a question or a story about a horse to a future episode of the podcast, you can do so by emailing us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com, which is universally more effective than tweeting us at crateandcrowbar. But you can do that as well. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/crateandcrowbar. And on Discord, link for which is on our website or in the show notes, which are on crateandcrowbar.com. Thanks, Patreon friends, for being Patreon friends and allowing us to do the podcast and its spin-offs. And that's it, really. If you'd like to follow us as individuals, I'm on Twitter at CThurston. That's CTHURSTEN. Follow me if you want to hear me get grumpy every month or something about people walking their dogs and threatening my crow my son that's a crow.
I am at Pentadact on Twitter, PENTADACT.
I am notionally at Rotational. I'm not going to spell it because I'm only there notionally.
And people know how to spell it.
And the link's in the show notes anyway, so the whole thing's been a massive waste of time.
Christ.
So many years.
Thanks for listening.